Welcome to Learning Forensic Science with Anchal Kapoor. So, you must be having a basic idea of forensic sciences, right? Forensic science is an applied science, it is not a basic science. Forensic science actually applies the principles taken from the natural sciences, from the basic sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, and applies those principles to solve the intricacies of the criminal justice system, right? Now, to start up with the process of learning forensic science, I have taken the first field and first area to start learning, which is forensic anthropology. So, if I start explaining this field in this video, I will be just giving you a roadmap of what all we will be studying in under forensic anthropology. I will be taking each branch at a time, right? And for one branch, I'll explain you what all topics that we are going to cover, and I'll upload the videos. And after we complete this branch, we will then shift and move forward to learning the next branch of the forensic science, right? So, if I give you a roadmap of forensic anthropology and I start explaining to you what is forensic anthropology, we first need to understand what is anthropology. So, the word anthropology actually came from two Greek words, anthros, which means the man or the human, and logy, which means study. So, anthropology, in a broad aspect, is the study of human beings, right? Anthropology means study of human beings. So anthropology was then further divided into several domains and several categories, which included the cultural anthropology, the linguistic anthropology, how do people speak, like what is their language, the mode of communication, right? Then there came the biological anthropology, and then there came archaeology. So there are these different fields and different branches of anthropology. Then, from the field of biological anthropology, arose a field which is called the forensic anthropology. We will be discussing about all this in detail in our next video when we will be actually studying the field. But today in this video, I just want to give you a roadmap of what all is included in the field of forensic anthropology and what all we will be studying, right? So starting off with an introduction to anthropology, the significance and the scope of forensic anthropology. So understanding anthropology is very important for us because there are several terms, several scientific areas that we have to ponder upon and look upon. What all included under anthropology, and from that biological anthropology specifically speaking, what all are we picking up and putting into the forensic anthropology. So we'll be talking about different terms like anthropometry, there is ethnology, there are several related terms that we will be studying in under the introduction to anthropology. And then we will be seeing ki what can forensic anthropology give us, right? By now you should be having a bit idea that if you're talking about anthropology and if we are talking about forensic anthropology, we are referring to human remains, the human bones, right? So if we are recovering human bones from the scene of crime, right, what all are we able to decipher from the bones that we are getting? Are we able to assess the sex of the bones from the bones, like sex of the individual who has died and the bones that we have received? Are we able to reconstruct that the bones belongs to which gender of individual? Are we able to do that? The age estimation, like the point at which the person died, right? What was the age of that individual at the time of death? At the time of death, when the person died, there are certain changes in the body. Okay, the body decomposes itself at a point that skeletonization happens. So the flesh of the body decomposes and only the bones are remain with us. So if we reach to a crime scene, or if we reach to an area where we are encountering bones, okay, what can these bones tell us? That we are going to study under forensic anthropology, right? Are we able to estimate the race of an individual, whether the person was belonged to which area of the globe, which part of the globe? Was it Caucasian, was it Mongoloid, or the person Negroid race was there? Okay, so the sex of an individual, the estimation of age at the time of death, the race of an individual, the stature, the height, the build of an individual. Are we able to assess all these things? And how is it even possible? Right? How, what are the identifying features? How are we able to assess these features just from bones? Some people, when they say bone, if you are not into forensic anthropology and you have not studied, you must not be very much be capable of distinguishing between the two set of bones also. Bones look very alike to a person who is not very into studying the bones, right? The bones are just bones for some people, but deciphering information from these bones is the work of forensic anthropologist. Okay, we will be studying about the entire human skeletal system. So before deciphering information from bones, before knowing certain aspects from bones, we should know the bones first. Okay, that in human skeletal system, how many bones are there? Okay, if there is a bone in the hand and if there is a bone in the leg, what is the difference between these bones, right? What are the characteristic features of the bones? That we have to study, and for that we will be studying the human skeletal system, whereby we will be discussing about the distinguishing features of each bone. So if you recover a bone from the scene of crime, you know that okay, this bone belongs to this part of the body, right? Then we will be studying about not only identification of these features. See, whenever we talk about something in forensic science now, it has two, you can say it has two stages, you can say, or you can say there are two categories. Whenever we study about identification or estimation of something in forensic science, there are class characteristics and there are individual characteristics. Whenever you will be studying about any field in forensic science now, there are these two basic characteristics that you must know. No matter whether you are studying about fingerprints, no matter whether you are studying about any area of forensic science, right? There is always a class characteristic and there is always one individual characteristic. So when I talk about forensic anthropology here, class characteristic is the sex or the gender of the individual. If I tell you, okay, this skeleton belongs to a male, right? You have only reached to a certain specific conclusion that, okay, the skeleton belongs to a male. Which male? How would you know which male? There are so many males, right? The age is also a class characteristic. If I tell you that, okay, the skeleton that we have recovered from the scene of crime, the age of the individual might be between 18 to 22. So, there are millions of individuals on this planet in between this age group. Who does the skeleton belong to? It is again a class characteristic. We talk about race. If I tell you that the skeleton that we have received from the scene of crime must be, the person must be a Mongoloid. Which Mongoloid? Right? There are so many people and so many individuals. Similarly, stature is also a class characteristic. Stature is a class characteristic. If I tell you that the height of the person was approximately 5'11", let's say 5'11". So there are so many individuals that are 5'11", right? Their height is that, but which specific individual does that bone belong to? How would we get to know? That's when individual characteristics come into role. They are these specific identifying features that helps in actually coming these class characteristics. Now, these only helps us in grouping. Okay? If you've studied the Venn diagram, now if we talk about the class characteristics, they actually help us narrow down and come to a Venn diagram. Okay, that we are looking for. Suppose we have received bones from the scene of crime and we have got to know these class characteristics um, of that skeletal remain, right? So the sex is suppose male, age is between 18 to 22, and the race is mongoloid, and stature is 5'11" approx, right? If we have come to this description, now we will take these points and we will send to like whatever the investigating officer might be. We will ask them and we will run the database and we'll check if any missing individual was reported, or if there is any search for an individual whose characteristics match with those, right? Then after we get match, or after we see from the database, from the crime records, that okay, this person was missing, then we will go into the individual identifiers. We will search for the individual identifiers. Now, one of the most prominent and most used and most talked about individual identifier can be DNA testing, right? If the bones are in a state of getting processed for a DNA identification, that can be a specific identifier, right? After DNA, if see, for DNA matching now, we need, okay, if you're talking about DNA profiling of a skeleton, okay, you always need, whenever you're profiling a DNA, you always need two things. One is the, suppose here, DNA of the skeletal remain, okay. If you have the DNA of the skeletal remain, you can run it through database and you can check if there is any match or any hit or not, right? But if you do not have database, or there is no match of this DNA of skeletal remain in the database, then what will you do? Then you must have some suspect family, ठीक है? कोई किसी ने मिसिंग कंप्लेंट करवाई हो, उसको बुलाओ, उनका डीएनए लो, उसको स्केलेटल रिमेन से मैच करो, क्या मैच हो रहा है उनके मम्मी पापा का डीएनए, उनकी फैमिली का डीएनए. तो वी हैव टू, for DNA matching, it's a tedious task. It is, you have to go to several details and you have to narrow down your search to a specific person, because DNA profiling is expensive also, right? DNA profiling takes time, and if database is not that efficient and it is not that inclusive to have the DNA samples and DNA records of each and every individual of that country, then it becomes difficult and a tedious task just to rely on DNA, because getting only the DNA profile of skeletal remain would tell you nothing, right? It, if you go for studying the features from the DNA, like now what is happening is, from the DNA only, the features of an individual can be identified and can be distinguished, but it is very costly process. Like with the help of DNA, you can tell what color of the eye the person had, and certain things that you can tell from the DNA of a person, but it is very time consuming and it is very expensive process, right? You have to rely on other identifiers also. So for other identifiers, let's say ki there was some genetic disorder, to this person, right? And it had a condition in which the bone cannot retain its integrity, right? So the bone tissues are soft at one point and they're hard at one point. I will be discussing about the bone disorder. This is a genetic disorder that I will be talking about in my upcoming videos. So there are several specific identifiers. Suppose if you find an implant, so there are knee caps that are implanted for old individuals, or there is some surgery. A person has underwent a surgery, or there was some fracture, right? So these all the medical history related to that skeleton comes under the individual characteristics that belong to only that individual, right? So this was a bit crisp idea what we all will be discussing and we all will be talking about in the forensic anthropology, right? Not only I will be teaching you about the concepts of forensic anthropology, but what I'll try to do is that I'll try to accommodate some videos from Hollywood, Bollywood movies and series so that you can understand what is actually happening. What I want to do here is I want to broaden your horizons and I want you to explore and think in different perspectives. You can even find out research ideas from my upcoming videos. And it goes without saying that these videos would help you in learning about the UGC NET exam. If you're preparing for any competitive exam related to forensic science, this will all be helping you out in your preparation phase and also for writing answers in your course curriculum, whether you are in bachelor's or in master's. You can follow these videos. So after we have come to the identification, we will be talking about this. We will be studying about craniometry. Craniometry is actually the measurement of skull. So craniometry helps very much in identifying the skeletal remains, right? We will be discussing about the facial reconstruction process. You must have heard about various case studies in the forensic science which used the facial reconstruction process. There are several case studies, but I'll tell you some of the major known case studies in which facial reconstruction process was used and what was the outcome, how did they do that. We will be talking about this in detail. And in the last, I will be taking this concept of study of burnt bones and bone fragments. Right? We will be discussing briefly about this thing, that how burnt bones are, if they are recovered from the scene of crime, how they are assessed and how they are actually used for the analysis of the individual before death. Like how can we reach from bones to the individual, right? So, this all are the topics that we are going to talk about in the forensic anthropology in my upcoming videos. Stay tuned, keep your knowledge progressing, keep on increasing your enthusiasm for this field. Go crazy about learning forensic anthropology. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Thank you so much, guys. Stay tuned.